Hey guys, I'm Danny,
And I'm EJ, and this is the Your Living Proof podcast.
where we talk about addiction and how it affects the family, from the brutal to the beautiful and everything in between.
Hey everybody, I'm flying solo without Danny today. Well, I'm not flying solo. I brought a really good friend named Pamela, and she is here to talk to us today in episode 80.
Wow.
I know.
80, that's a lot.
It is. Like, it's still kind of a trip, but I'm so glad. And Danny is doing lots of other things, so I'm sorry if you're missing him today. But I wanted to bring on my dear friend to talk to all of you about her experience the last, year and a half?
It's been the last year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
The last year. So I'm going to be asking Pamela a lot of questions, and she is just going to give you a little window into her world. And my hope is that as you listen to her, that you can hear maybe little pieces of yourself, and that she can help kind of articulate pieces of you that you probably haven't been able to articulate to anyone else. So just to get started, Pamela, how did you find the Living Proof program?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me here.
Oh,
it is
I'm so
such an
grateful.
honor. I absolutely love this program, and I'd love to be able to share my story. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. I do think that the number 80 is kind of awesome.
It is. It is. You are correct.
So I am so grateful to be a part of it. But to answer your question, so I found the Living Proof program actually through a friend who was already in the program, and she knew that I was struggling, and she just kept telling me to reach out to Danny, listen to your podcast, listen to the different videos on Instagram and stuff like that. And so I did finally.
Wow.
When stuff got really
Okay,
really
I
heavy.
actually didn't know that. That's awesome. So cool. Okay, well, can you tell us, and also just thank you for being vulnerable, because can I say that there are so many thousands and thousands of women that are maybe too afraid to be this vulnerable and share their, their wilderness experience, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really grateful because, as you know, our secrets keep us sick. And when we share our hearts with others, it allows healing for others, right?
Yeah.
Like you being available in this way and being willing and having an open heart is going to help so many people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Will you tell us a little bit about like the situation that you were in that so tell us about like what situation you were in, but what maybe even finally pushed you, as it sounds like your friend was kind of pushing you for a while to get some professional help, but you weren't like doing it. So what pushed you to that?
Well, so a little bit about my backstory is I met my husband, and 5 years ago we got married. We dated for like 6 months.
Okay.
And I should have known, because the first moment I told him that I didn't care if he ever went to church with me or whatever his religious beliefs were. I just wanted a nice guy. However, alcohol was a deal breaker. I should have known right then that I sealed my fate, because I didn't know that alcohol was an issue. And he didn't drink a drop of it.
Around you?
Around me the entire time we dated. It wasn't until our honeymoon that came into effect. And then when we got home from our honeymoon, like kind of the wheels fell off. And that's, you really never really know someone until you live with them anyway. But I recognized that he had some severe trauma. And so, he didn't ask for that to happen to him. Just like I didn't ask for what was happening to me to be done. But it was what it was. So I just tried and tried for 5 years to help him learn how to process, therapy, as well as any of the recovery programs through the church or whatnot, just different information. And it became apparent that he didn't have an interest. So I can only control myself.
Yeah.
So I started my own endeavor. And what I recognized is that I was starting to get sick right along with him. There towards the end, I was really hyper focused on him and what he was doing. And then I started to go on bottle hunts around my house
Okay.
several times a day. And I was like, wait a minute, well, I've already looked in all these places. What am I doing?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? And then I was so hyper-focused thinking, if he would just stop drinking alcohol, that would solve all our problems. So it just got so bad, and it was more, it was occurring more and more. And then it was starting to affect his ability to work. We're self-employed, and I can't make him work. And then, he would have issues and not be able to work for a few days after. And I'm like, I can't do this. This is too much. So I was really just spiraling.
Really interesting to hear you say that you noticed that you were like not acting like yourself, like that you would be doing things and be like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. I mean, it was like, I don't want to say psychotic, but it was crazy. I thought, why am I doing this activity? And my brain, I could just feel it in my brain.
Yeah.
As a habit started to form, and over and over, and it was becoming an obsession.
That's so funny. I was just about to say that. I said,
Yeah.
It became an obsession, which is totally valid, right? Like, because you were right. I mean, it wasn't like you were obsessing over something that wasn't real. It wasn't imaginary.
Yeah.
It was very real. And so I could see how it would almost become like your own addiction.
Yeah.
It
was
to fixate on all of that.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
I had tried so many things. I did betrayal trauma.
Yeah.
I did ART, which is what do they call that? Where it's accelerated recovery therapy and things like that. Like, I did everything. I've been going to therapy for probably 20 years myself because of my own garbage that I've caused.
Sure.
And then in addition to the recovery programs that were offered in the area, I've even tried AA. Like, I was just doing everything.
Everything. Well, that's funny. I was just going to say, like, did you get to a point where you felt like, I have done everything possible? I have overturned every stone I can to try to problem solve this.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Did you feel like,
Oh
yep,
my gosh, everything. I read books. The funny thing is, I even threatened divorce
sure.
several times. I just could not figure out how to make real change happen.
Yeah.
I had been going to the recovery program for two and a half years.
Just like
Through the church or
Okay.
through my church, and it was great. I found a wonderful support network there of people that understood what I was going through. So I found a bit of a community. But I recognized something interesting is it was cycling. It's the same stuff, the same stories, the same thing, and I appreciated being able to draw on a power much larger than myself.
Yeah.
And so in that regard, I just really took to prayer and was like, okay, how can I make real change happen?
Yeah.
I only have control of myself. So what do I need to do? Do I need to leave this man? And to be honest with you, I I love that man so much that I
Yeah.
couldn't live with him, and I can't live without him.
Yeah.
So, and I can't kill him. So, it's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I was just, it was hard.
Wow. Well, so yes, you tried everything.
I tried everything.
You exhausted
so.
yourself
Yep.
to the bone
Yeah.
to try and not only help him problem solve this and heal, but do your own healing. It sounds like do your own processing, be accountable to yourself for things. And so now I want to know what was it that changed then when you entered the Living Proof program? What changed?
So what's interesting is I had begun to hear little snippets that made sense and resonated with me that Danny would say and talk about. But when
Like on Instagram or something like that?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was some of the videos that my friend would send me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we loved, I loved it. And then, but when you're spiraling, it's almost like you're frozen in fear.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what to do next. And I couldn't adequately move forward with anything. I just, my whole life was a mess.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know really which way was up or down or sideways.
Yeah.
I was all of the above, I just knew that I needed to disconnect my caboose from this crazy train somehow.
Yeah.
So when I met Danny, and I tell this story sometimes in group, but when I met Danny,
just to let you know, she is in our program and in our private community. So when she talks about group, that is what she is talking about in our twice a week support groups.
Thank you. And so when I met with him and he told me the plan of how to help my husband, I actually, honestly, I was annoyed.
That's fine. That's fair.
I was annoyed.
I was glad he's not here.
I know. I was like, oh, don't give me your one plan fixes all business.
Yeah.
What do you know? And it literally took me several days to process what he had said and really take into an account. Because, later now I've learned that when someone irritates you or whatever they've said, that's because there's a mirror. There's a mirror there.
It's a sign. Yeah.
And so I was like, what? You got to be kidding me. This is what you want me to do? I can't do this.
Yeah.
I don't even have insurance.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I can help you.
Yeah.
Really? And so immediately from the get-go, that first meeting, the whole program paid for itself within that first meeting.
Oh.
It was amazing because of the insurance connection, as well as any of the resources that he's continued to be. Yeah. And so my eyes started to open up and be like, wait a minute. So he's been there, done that. Yeah. He knows how to get out of the trenches. I don't know how to get out of the trenches. I've been trying to figure it out on my own. Yeah. And I can't.
For 5 years.
Yeah. So what do I have to lose?
Yeah. Oh, how interesting. Wow. Well, so my next question then is, once you kind of started getting going in this and doing this work, what was the hardest part for you?
In the whole process?
I'm sure there were things that were actually like affirming and like helped you and healed you in ways to hear and to know. And then other things that were probably challenging and maybe difficult to wrap your mind around. So what was it?
Well, there's I think two things really that come to my mind. One of them is absolutely me. Danny talks about giving the gift. You guys talk about giving the gift. That absolutely was scary. Right. There was so much unknown. When do I give the gift? How do I give the gift? What happens if he doesn't take the gift? Yeah. I just didn't. It was scary. And as as an enabler, which enabler doesn't really resonate with me, that word, but overdoer sure does.
Overfunctioner.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll function for the both of you
Yeah,
until
yeah,
you die.
yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. I'll overdo the heck out of that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
You bet. I'll
Yep.
take care of it. And so that was probably the scariest part, is to learn how to really hold that healthy boundary
Yeah.
and when. Because when crap's hitting the fan, you're like, is now?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
is now the time that I jump in?
Yep.
And so you don't know if this is it. Is this
Well,
the
and
time?
you're so used to living in this place of complete chaos and fear, right? Like you're programmed for a fear-based response.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, well
That's
we were
what
living in
addiction-
it because he would do he would act this way and I would act that way. It was
Right.
a song and dance that we knew the tune
Yep.
to this
It was
song
muscle memory.
forever.
It was
Yep,
muscle
forever.
memory. So to do something that was the opposite of that, I'm sure felt like you were in junior high with no clothes on in the middle of the hallway.
Yeah. Well, you know what was interesting is there actually became a lot of comfort when you follow the plan and you set up. You already have, like, I had already done a lot of the work.
Yes.
Meaning I did the footwork, finding the new place that, finding the rehab center that my husband would go to and what those options looked like. I vetted, I vetted them.
Yeah.
And so I knew, okay, I didn't have to backtrack.
Right.
I wasn't behind the 8 ball. I didn't have to be
you
like.
were ahead of it for
Yeah.
once. Right?
For once,
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And that essentially is really the gift.
Yeah.
That's not only the gift to him, but that's the gift to me.
Yeah.
To know that there's going to be an end in sight. Let's see
Right.
which path he takes.
Yes. Oh gosh. So that was
That was the hardest for me.
Yeah.
For me.
I can understand that. That makes a lot of sense. What would you say after being a part of this program for a whole year? What would you say has been the most valuable part of it?
Well, I have a Danny.
He's pretty great.
I have a guide. I share with people that the difference that I believe this program makes is that Danny's a cheerleader for you when you need it. He is a guide to help you understand where you are and to help you get to where you want to be. But not only that, he also served and serves as a backbone for me when I wanted to be like, no, I don't want to do that because it's hard.
Yeah.
And he'd be like,
uncomfortable.
yeah. And no, come on, you can do this. And, he never advocates divorce or leaving or any of that kind of stuff. He's always about what we want and what we've gone through.
Yeah.
And understanding that some of those decisions are out of our control. All of them. But what we decide to hold those boundaries with, I think that was the other hard part, was learning how to hold healthy boundaries and when.
I think that is the number one thing that people struggle with.
Oh, yeah.
When they are in a relationship of any kind, even if it's a parent with a child, saying I have this boundary is one thing. Holding that boundary is a completely different ballpark. I mean, it's actually a completely different planet.
It really is.
And I would say that most people feel that they could not hold that firm of a boundary that could contain and push up against an addiction without support.
Oh, no, absolutely. Especially, I talk about there's power in the pause. So when you give the gift, there's a period of quiet pause.
Right.
Where you're waiting for your loved one to process.
Right.
And sometimes they don't. They're not quiet.
Or they're like,
Right. They're
Screw
not
you.
quite, they're like yelling at you. No, never mind. You just do what you got to do or
Yeah.
whatever. And you're just holding that boundary very quietly.
Which is really scary,
very.
especially when you're like, but I want my marriage to work. I actually don't want them to leave. Or
Nope.
I want my child to live, and I'm scared they're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so scared that maybe I'll just keep living in this tornado that I'm living in, because at least I know the tornado by now, right?
Yeah. It's familiar. It's somewhat comfortable.
Yeah.
It's better than the unknown.
Yeah.
But is it?
Right?
Is it really? I think that for me, kind of a fun after effect when Danny taught me how. Therapists would tell me, you need to hold a boundary. You need to hold a boundary. Okay, great. How do you do that?
Yeah, how?
How about you just tell me how and when?
Yeah.
Danny did. He was like, this is how and this is when.
Right.
And one of the fun after effects from learning these tools is I now get to hold these healthy boundaries with my adult children.
That is a big blessing.
It actually
Wow.
is. It actually
That's
is.
awesome.
And so it is rippling out in my life, because when my children are able to take accountability for their own actions,
Right.
they have to want to choose in. And manipulating me, or, whether it's a child or your spouse, manipulation is not a choice.
Right. Right. Not when you know how to hold a boundary.
Yeah.
You can't be manipulated at that point.
Exactly.
And that's why addicts hate boundaries.
I know. Well, I think most people don't like boundaries because they just want to be able to do what they want.
Yeah, it takes their power away 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you kind of just to tell our audience about your experience with being a part of our private community, our support group, our private support group.
Yeah. So for me, the private support group, first of all, again, I did not know what I was getting into. I didn't know that this was going to be this. I didn't know that this was the answer literally to my prayers. This whole program, I had no idea. And when I got into the group, it was great. We learned different people are on different parts of the path of their healing journey.
Yeah.
And so there's so much to glean from them. But it really helped me not only when my husband chose recovery, to have support from them that was like, oh, okay, we've been there. Yeah. I had someone to look up to. Oh, they've had success.
Yeah.
And then during some part of that, as my husband continued to choose recovery and went into his intense outpatient program, there was support from all of them. But there was a time in that little void of where someone else in our group, they were recognizing that their spouse was struggling and was kind of backsliding.
Yeah.
And what that did was that gave me a bird's eye view of, oh, this
I can
happen.
anticipate this.
This can happen for real.
Yeah.
How do I not have this happen?
Right. Basically learning from each other.
Yeah, learning from and so I just was so grateful for that example, because when I found myself in that same position, what I realized was the answer was to hold another boundary. Thanks to Danny, he was like, "Okay, you've got to bring this out again."
Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah.
Because I wanted change so much more than I was scared of holding that boundary and what would happen. I was afraid that life would go back.
Yeah.
And it still could.
Right.
But I know that if I use these tools that Danny has taught me, when you have the right tool at the right time for the right job, it gets fixed. And a hammer doesn't fix everything, although it is my favorite.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
But I feel like when you're able to, I wanted change so much that I was willing to get uncomfortable
Yeah.
and stay in that uncomfortable until it continued to be, I guess I say motivated properly.
Yeah, no, and that's truly what it is. And with you had obviously had experience before with being like going to support groups, right? It sounded like you
Yeah.
had been to so many.
Yeah.
What would you say like the difference was between like support groups that you had been to before and then being a part of this community?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's such a great question. So the support groups before were just that, support. It's like going to your mom and getting a big hug. Oh, I need a hug. They're great.
I actually need a hug
Right.
maybe when we're done here.
Absolutely. But it's almost like it's, when you go to get advice from the wrong person and you're like, oh, you don't even know. It's kind of an internal thing. I feel like the difference this program creates is action.
Oh, okay.
Action that it really, nothing moved the needle for me until I found this program. And it was because Danny teaches action, but he doesn't force it. He doesn't make anybody do anything that they're not ready to. If it takes you 2 weeks or 2 years, that's up to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Well, and I think being around when you're meeting together in a group of people that are in action stage, they are well past the point of just wanting a hug about it.
Yeah.
It's really it's deeply not only motivating, but it gives you this almost like push, right? To keep going forward, to keep going because you're not alone in it. And you know that other people have walked in this exact place before and they're people that you love and admire. And, I think it's interesting because it's funny. I've also been to plenty of support groups in my life. And sometimes I feel like they're nice because it's almost like a way to commiserate, right? Like, we've all experienced the same trauma.
My loved one relapsed again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Woe is me.
And you know what? There's a place for that. In fact, addiction is so isolating that I think it's actually very healthy for people to find that there are plenty of other people that are experiencing the same experiences as you. However, it doesn't help you make any progress.
No. That's exactly right.
So it's almost like if you want the progress piece, you got to find a group of people that are done talking about how hard it is and are ready to make a move.
Yeah, I think that it's important to have really both of those because it's almost like the progress. It's the steps.
Yeah,
in a different way.
Right.
Where it takes a second to get into that mindset where you're willing to find and seek out other people that are in your same situation because you're realizing your outside sources don't know anything about addiction.
Right.
And their answers are just leave.
Oh, yeah, super helpful.
Just kick them out. And okay, great. And then what?
Yeah, exactly.
And so when relapses were happening or active addiction was happening, people don't understand what that means, that it's an actual brain disease. And would you kick out your husband or your child if they had cancer?
Right.
I don't think so.
Right.
And so, but cancer is the most compassionate disease that anybody can have, where everyone's like, oh, they're very empathetic. Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. Addiction has a lot of negative connotations to it.
Yeah. Shame.
Yeah, shame. And some people, it's just they can't relate. Yeah. They don't know.
I was gonna say it. You don't know, and that's the hardest thing.
They had an uncle,
right?
Or they've got a brother that lives in California, that is nowhere near them,
So
that struggles with it.
Yeah, it's almost damaging actually when you experience those kinds of like little quips of advice, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, bless their hearts.
Yeah.
They really do mean well. They want to, they want to offer up advice but they just, and then they get tired
yeah.
of hearing
Yeah.
the stories. So then you go out and look for the community where people are like, oh, I got you. I know how that feels.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, thank you. I found my people. I know, oh, you do. You appreciate it. And then you get to learn about that this is a disease that your loved one is enthralled so deep and it's wrapped right, like it's got them so entwined in this prison that there's no way they can break out without help.
Yeah. And you got to learn how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what's so interesting? Is my husband now, after he's been in recovery now, it's been 9 months.
Yeah.
He says to me, when I let him know when he was in rehab, I told him, I have entered in my own recovery program. He said to me now, I'm so grateful that you did. First of all, when you told me that, I thought, oh crap, she's going to leave me because she's going to get educated.
Yeah.
And then he said, and then I had another thought. I don't have to do this by myself. Because most people that are addicts, what they experience is go get help. And when you're better, come back.
Oh, Pamela, you are right. And that is a heavy burden. And bless their hearts. Because, gosh, everybody knows that when I married Danny, he was about where your husband is right now. I mean, he was just barely a year sober. And if I would have expected him to operate at the level that, of somebody that had not experienced what he had experienced, we both would have been in big trouble. But I knew he needed constant support. I knew I needed constant support. I knew it was going to be a fight. I knew that I could only expect certain things at this point out of him, and I knew that I had to learn how to hold him accountable, or else he was going to fall back into what was easier for him at the time, which was not what we all do every day, which is having pain and learning how to cope with it in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Addicts, they don't know how to do that. It takes a while to relearn how to do that. And if you're with someone that doesn't understand that and isn't equipped to know how to support that type of situation, then you're both going to be doing this whole thing again.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys talk about the opposite of addiction is connection. So what part of that is all by yourself?
Right.
None of it. None of it is. If you would continue to be supportive, if you are able to consume the same information or at least be on the path together, you can do it if you're by yourself.
Yeah.
It can be done.
Yeah.
Because I got sick right alongside my husband.
Yeah, but you didn't know it.
And in just a different way. And I didn't realize it. And I remember one time in group I had shared something that I needed to be open about. And Danny said to me, thank you for bringing that up and not letting that secret fester. And I was like, wow. Oh, you mean everything, not just the little, not just the bad stuff as a secret. Everything. Yeah. It's okay to be who we are and to have differences. So, anyway, it's just been a great, great journey.
Do you feel like you would be at this point, you and your husband, had you not acted on that thought that, okay, it's time to join the program?
Oh, absolutely not. No. I was done. I was realizing that I was going to go down with the ship. And as much as it killed me to do that, I thought, well, I'm going to have to just vacate this whole situation. I don't want to. And I really feel like I had to get to that point in order to hold that boundary
Yeah.
so that regardless of whether he chose recovery or didn't, I was okay with the outcome. Because if it wasn't me, that's his choice.
Wow.
So I had to, there's no way we would have been still spiraling, or I would have been on the road to divorce and separating my life and doing all that. That's not what I wanted. That's really, really not what I wanted. But I didn't want to live in the crazy anymore. I wanted that less or more. I guess I wanted that more.
Yeah.
I didn't want that. I was getting sick, and I didn't want to do this for years and years and years. And I have young adult kids that are watching me,
Yeah.
and we do what we see. And I did not want them to repeat what I was doing. They're not dumb. They don't live at my house, but they're not dumb.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Well, what would you say if somebody is listening right now and is like, oh man, this is hitting because this sounds like me right now? What would you say to that person, to that woman, if you could?
Oh, just do it. Just figure it out. Come and join this community. It's been named, the Best Worst Club for a reason.
Right. They named themselves the Best Worst Club.
Yeah, for a reason. I never knew that I wanted or needed this kind of a support. And I am so grateful that I found it when I did. It's worth every dime. It's worth, I would never say beg, borrow, and steal, but maybe.
Oh, gosh.
Maybe. If it will save your life, it will save your marriage, it will save your family, what price would you put on that? It's priceless. And to be a part of it, do it now. Now is the time. I don't believe that coincidences are just coincidences, right? They happen for a reason. You come across this podcast for a reason, this episode for a reason. Someone's talking to you.
Mm.
I'm talking to you right now through someone else. Do it now. I promise you, you will not regret it. And what's the worst that can happen? You have a healthier life. That's the worst. You now can become a support for your family. I don't know about you. Yeah, having addiction right under your nose in your home is really challenging. But everybody's addicted to something.
Yeah.
The thought that you will never encounter someone that has an addiction, whether it's maybe to the gym or golfing or caffeine or sugar or your phone, that's a big one.
Yeah.
You're going to encounter someone. So why wouldn't you want to arm yourself with knowledge, empower yourself in a way that you have these tools?
Yeah.
And you're the fix-it. Like you at least know how to educate and inform. You're not fixing people. You're fixing your mindset in a way where you can educate from a place of love, and you know what you're talking about. You're not guessing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. It's interesting because I feel like there's so many people that are almost just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
Until they feel like, okay, I'm ready. And that's fine. But it's sad because you don't have to suffer.
Well, and how much longer can you?
Right?
The thought of me going, okay, can I do this for another year? My health was starting to get bad. I was losing a ton of weight. Like I couldn't eat anymore. Like my health, my body was screaming at me, you got to make a change. We can't keep doing this. My brain, I had situational depression.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't do this. I didn't want to,
It's not living.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it to keep that train going like that. No, not when you have help. You don't have to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for being vulnerable, for being open, for being honest, and for being willing to share your experience that you are still having, that you are in
I'm
the middle
still in
of.
it. Mhm.
So thank you so much. And we close every episode with the Serenity Prayer for Families. So I'm going to say the
awesome.
Serenity Prayer for Families, and it is, God grant me the serenity to accept that I cannot change other people, the courage to change the person that I can, and the wisdom to know that it is me. Reach out. If you are interested in learning more about our program, head to our website. Everything is linked in the podcast. And next episode, Danny will be back. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.